Before we dive in, I would love to read a disclaimer that I made. I didn't want to just say anything from my heart because it might get misdelivered and misunderstood, so I decided to just write it down and make sure that all my bases are covered. Okay, let's get into it. Disclaimer. Before we dive in, I want to share a quick disclaimer from my heart. I don't live in the West, nor have I walked in the shoes of those living in the diaspora. My understanding of the Western experience comes from observing, listening, and researching the wealth of information shared online, especially by Black Americans who have been so generously open about their lives and culture to the public, to the media, to the internet. Thank you guys. I'm not saying anything in this video as an uppity or detached African coming to judge. I share this out of deep love, care, and a desire for understanding. When I look at how proximity to the colonizer disrupted our people, I believe that holding on to authentic African communal values isn't just important for us at home, it is something that those in the diaspora need and deserve to hold on to even more intensely as a way to reclaim who we were before the disruption. These are my reflections on how excellence is viewed across our divides. Offered not to point fingers but to open eyes, bridge the gap, and help us remember where our collective truths lie.
Is a family
Thank
meeting.
you.
This video is coming from a very sad place, but it's coming from a place of love. As a reminder, we didn't lose land when they colonized us. We lost each other. Now we carry flags instead of family, borders instead of brotherhood, tribe instead of truth. And while we scream Africa unite, we stab each other with dialects, clans, and skin tone. We didn't need the slave ships to separate us. We are doing it fine, even better than the slave masters. And to my brothers and sisters, the Black Americans, some of you say I ain't African. You say it with your full chest. And that's because your history was wiped clean and replaced with shame. But let me ask you something. If you're not African, what are you? You're not white, you're not brown, you're not Asian, you're not native. Where do you belong? You wear kente on your graduation day, but you deny the blood that made you. You vibe to Afrobeats, but would never claim your African roots. You scream, Wakanda forever, but turn your back on Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Namibia, Kenya, South Africa, and the rest of the African continent. They told you Africa is poor, dirty, and uncivilized, so you wear Gucci, forgetting that the gold was stolen from your ancestors. You straighten your hair, but your DNA cuts back to the motherland. And you, who still agree that you're black, you've been to 5 countries, but you've never stepped a foot on your motherland, the land that named you. In case you didn't know, I'll tell you. We are all scattered bones from the same skeleton, but the head despises the feet, the hand won't speak to the mouth, and the spine refuses to stand upright because it doesn't want to elevate the head. Meanwhile, back in Africa, we're killing each other over tribe. We're hiring only from our own region. We're marrying only our ethnic kind. We're voting, not for competence, but for cousin, for tribe, for religion. We're the only race whose diversity became a weapon not fashioned against our oppressors, but against ourselves. We're the only people who can't unite because we're so busy trying to out-purify each other. You're Igbo, you're Yoruba, you're Akan, you're Zulu, you're Ewe, you're Fulani, you're Tutsi, you're Ashanti. But guess what? To the rest of the world, we're black. Like it or not. When a police officer shoots you, he doesn't ask for a tribal card. When the visa officer denies you, he doesn't care where your ancestors come from. So why do we keep dividing the land that our ancestors bled to preserve and protect? Let me be clear. Your tribe is your heritage, but not your identity. Africa is your identity. Blackness is your banner. We didn't ask to be scattered, but we must choose to be reunited. We must build a future where a black boy in Detroit sees a brother in Durban. A sister in Nairobi cries when a black girl dies in Louisiana. A man in Accra feels in his bones when a brother in Brazil can't breathe. Because our pain is global, our healing must be as well. We use the chainsaw, but the only thing we keep cutting is ourselves, not the chains that holds us down. So this is a call, not to war, but to wisdom. To stop asking where you're from and start asking, where are we going? To stop fighting over tribes and start building a tribe of tribes. To stop denying the blood that raised you and start embracing it with every breath. Because if we don't unite, we'll stay divided, and continue to be prey to our predator. But together we are a force the world has never seen before. And no tribe, no border, no oppressor, no flag can stop what's rising in the soul of a black man, a black woman, that black girl, and that black boy. Africa is not divided. She's just waking up. And when her children return, mind, soul, and strength, the world will finally remember who we truly are. Thank you very much for coming this far.
Hello and welcome. The phrase Blac Excellence is a concept that is celebrated globally and brings forth a sense of pride within every black heart, because if one of us makes it, then the rest of us is uplifted, right? That is the spirit of Ubuntu Buntu. However, there is a dark contrast to the phrase. It exposes a massive rift between the global black diaspora and the African continent. So please remember to like this video, leave a comment, tell me what you think, let's talk about it, and like, follow, and share. Okay. Being black doesn't automatically make you African. This is a fact that we all know, right? I guess if I were to give an example off the top of my head, we could look at Dr. Umar and the divides that he I guess, prescribes. We can look at the whole Africans versus Black Americans. It's a whole thing, okay, and how I guess Black people in Australia, Black people in the UK, how they interact with African Americans and Africans. Being Black does not make you African, right? You don't even have to be Black. Just because you come from the African continent does not make you African, because how many people come, especially those in North Africa, they quite blatantly reject being African, they reject being Black. um Africanism is not merely an ethnicity, a race, or a geographic boundary. It is a standard. It is a way of community. It is a philosophy where everyone is required to participate, pull their own weight, and ensure the collective grows and thrives. By this virtue, even a white South African can truly be African if they wholeheartedly adopt this communal responsibility. The rift between being Black and being African becomes glaringly obvious when we look at how we define success. Globally, the phrase Black excellence is thrown around constantly, but the matrix changes entirely depending on which side of the divide you stand on. Is individual isolation, right? It's hyper capitalism, it's financial weight, it's corporate financial space, it's luxury, it's systematic wealth, it's prestige, it ties human value to net worth. Black excellence in the West is all about individualism. It's everybody cheering you on as you climb up because you made it. It's not you running so that people in your community can walk the path that you cleared for them. Um, in the West and in Western Black communities, excellence is measured through hyper individualistic lenses like socioeconomic clout, wealth, prestige, and online influence. A Black community or individual in the West is deemed excellent when they produce heavy financial weight, which is part of my perceived trap within which they remain enslaved. The Black communities still have to put on performances and play by the rules in order to survive. They end up adopting values which were never part of their identity to begin with. Values which they learn are a part of Western society because it is the only way they can survive. Values such as abandoning the elderly. This is a very multifaceted topic which needs a separate video on its own. Something that is becoming prevalent even in African homes today because we go no contact. And like I said, there is a silver lining to every situation. There's reasons as to why things happen, and there's a reason why an entire generation of people would get tired and fed up with a system that has always existed. So I'm not saying that going no contact with our elderly as Africans today is necessarily a bad thing. It's just not part of our culture and history. Right. Clapping for others because they made it, not because they ran so we can walk. And last but not least, not having the spirit of Ubuntu, not having not having the spirit of community. Basically, the spirit of Ubuntu basically says that you treat others as people. You understand that no man is an island, that you need others in order for you to be good. You need, like, in order for you to thrive and succeed, you need others. And if you succeed, others succeed. And if you clap for another person, you're not taking away from yourself. That is the spirit of Ubuntu. And these are examples of how major Western countries weaponize this. The United States. The viral matrix celebrating Black women as the most educated demographic is treated as a historic win, but the culture does not celebrate this for the sake of their wholeness. It treats education as a mere stepping stone to become a millionaire, a boss babe, or that girl. So, what I have observed with this topic, with this example of Black women being celebrated as they graduate, is that her graduating, as opposed to us when we celebrate somebody when they graduate, her graduating does not necessarily mean that she it is a win for the community. Of course, the community is clapping for her. Of course, the community is so excited for her. But the understanding or nuanced the nuanced meaning that I am getting from this is that we are celebrating that another one of us is going to get a seat at the high table. So basically, we're clapping for her as she's moving up alone to go be with the white people there at the top. It's not, it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of now that she's made it, the community is going to benefit in this way, in that way, in this way, right? For example, if she studied education, we understand that she's by default going to become an educator and uplift the community. But what if she studied BCom? What if she studied law? It's not a everybody thing that we are all celebrating because we know that she's going to make money for herself. Chances are she's already got no contact with her parents. And people are saying blood is thicker than water. They're saying that it's water of the womb, so the covenant that you make with strangers is stronger than the, like, I guess, your blood ties to people. And everybody, especially in the West, is adopting this and running with it. And it is especially problematic when I see it in the Black community because now we are abandoning the spirit of Ubuntu and we are embracing what the enemy has introduced to us as a collective. In the UK, it is manifesting slightly differently, but I believe, or it is my belief, that it is slightly more problematic because in the United Kingdom, excellence is corporate assimilation. Strictly. Not strictly, but if you are an excellent black human being, in the UK, typically it's corporate assimilation. It's epitomized by annual power lists. This is apparently a thing in the UK. Celebrating private equity titans and multimillionaires where individual success is validated only when a massive Western institution grants a seat at the table. Corporate assimilation. You are an excellent black human being if you have, I guess, corporate power. You are an excellent human being if you have corporate know-how, if you occupy corporate seats, and if you make it on this power list, which is like the list of black people who have money, the list of black people who have positions in corporate spaces and sometimes even in government. It's basically literally titles. That is what makes excellence in the West. It is titles. The title that you have makes you somebody in the community. In Germany and the Netherlands, black professionals are pushed to become hyper capable, isolated islands navigating rigid institutional grids or chasing venture capital in tech startups. You are, okay, it's my perceived truth again. The way that I see it is if you are to become or to be considered an excellent black human being in European countries, specifically these two that I looked up, you have to be hyper capable. So if everybody else is expected to produce this level of excellence, you have to be here. Meaning that you're not here with everybody else. You're not here with everybody else. You have to be there. And this isolates you from everybody because you understand that your standards for the same, hopefully, for the same benefits, for the same everything, you're getting what everybody else here is getting, but your performance level needs to be here. So you feel isolated systematically. In these spaces, higher education and independence are frequently weaponized to promote total separation, instead of the traditional route of leaving home to become someone and then returning to fix what is broken and take care of the parents and grand elders. In Africa, a family is a unit. Every move one part of the unit makes works towards the betterment of the entire system. For example, I'm very conscious of how I carry myself in public and in private because I understand that how I represent myself, how I carry myself is a direct representation of my parents and my family as a whole, which is an indication of my upbringing. However, um this Western black culture is influenced to encourage no contact because going back and helping fix the community takes from you. However, black people in Western countries are encouraged to harden their hearts against the very people who we have historically prided ourselves in. The no contact trend is in fact a historically white institutionalized practice where elders are placed into nursing homes and many are said to be abandoned there. In great contrast, the African ethos dictates that we nurse our elders in our homes, we love them in their vulnerability, and we bury them on our soil. In fact, common practice is when one of the siblings never leaves home. Some even marry and have children with their parents around. Living with mom and dad as a grown up is not a typically frowned upon thing in Africa. It's a common practice. In fact, many people build what we call back rooms in their parents' yards and live with them. We as Black people aren't quick to leave home. We embrace home. We love home. In fact, to those that do leave home, we come back every other week, every other month, just to make sure that home is okay, just to make sure that home is taken care of. Many out of Africans or Blacks present themselves as woke and breaking generational curses and being the black sheep or scapegoat of the family, when in fact they are speeding down the path of deception, mistaking capitalistic isolation for freedom. We were never a group of people who sat down in quiet libraries and absorbed informations in silence and selfishness. Instead, we spoke out loud with our full chests, sharing stories to every ear near and far. When colonization came, we had to turn our backs on a lot of what made us who we were. We never abandoned ourselves. Our cultural practices carry remnants of our true identity. And out of Africa, Africans should cling to these far tighter than we ever could because of their proximity to the people who have deceived us. They are living in their systems and are forced to adopt things that make them comfortable, things that they know. And unfortunately, this includes leaving home. Like I said, for us, it's not frowned upon. In fact, it's typically welcomed. If parents have more than one child, it's expected that at least one child, typically the last born child, will stay at home and take care of mom and dad. They typically get married and live at home. It's not something that is frowned upon, especially if they are male. They bring their wives and come live with their parents. We have this concept here in South Africa we call back room or ekhonchini or um posi. Yeah, which is typically a back room, which is basically a back room where people live. They live there and they build their lives in their parents' yards. It's not something that is typically frowned upon, especially if the child is working and is financially capable of taking care of themselves and contributing to the household. It is something that is typically welcomed. But however, in Western societies, children, they get kicked out. I have seen so many videos of parents kicking out their children. I have seen a number of videos of people, even black people, saying that they left home at 16 or as soon as they turned 18 or 21 they left home. But for us, we leave home very late in life because typically by 25 you've graduated and by 28 you've already found a job. So by the time you reach 30 or in your late 20s, so late 20s to early 30s is typically the time where one is expected to leave home and go fend for themselves at this point. Because another understanding is that when a child first starts, they need their parents to support them. So even if you leave home, mom and dad will be coming in every now and then just to make sure that you know how to assemble a table, you know how to cook, to make sure that you're buying groceries the right way, to make sure that your spending habits are consistent with inflation, consistent with with reality. Like you're not overspending, you're not living in debt, you're not digging yourself a hole in your living situation. And this happens, you'll find mom coming in typically unannounced every now and then. This is how we live. This is how we've always lived as Africans. However, black people in the West, they go no contact. As soon as they leave home, mom is not allowed to come visit. Your siblings aren't allowed to come visit. You want to be like this, you want to be alone. And don't get me wrong, even in Africa we understand that I guess for spiritual enlightening or for spiritual growth, there are periods where you need to be alone, where you need absolute isolation, but it shouldn't be forever. shouldn't last more than a year for many people. Most people take it a year, where you go a year with nobody knowing where you are, what you're doing. But in that year, it's you building yourself up. And after that year, or after like maybe 2, 3, or even 5 years, you go back home. You go back home and you go check if they're okay, and you reconnect with your people. You do need time where it's just you, and you need to figure yourself out away from everybody, but you have to go back. You have to go back. And you're not, nobody is saying that when you go back you have to go now fix the family situation, you have to go around giving people money for free. Nobody is saying that. We're just saying be communal, you know, like check in on people. Nobody actually wants your money, not really. People just want you to call and check in. That's it. That's the bare minimum that is expected of you, as dictated by Africanism. When we look at Africanism, Black excellence is measured through women, and second to women is the community. We understand a fundamental truth. If a woman is thriving, the community around her is also thriving. If a woman is struggling, the community fractures. And this is the detriment, and this detriment spans generations upon generation, in great contrast to men, because with men, how many children, how many of us are growing up without our fathers? How many? Do you even know who you are if you don't know where your mom comes from? You can know who your father is, you can know everything about your father and his background, but if you do not know a single thing about your mother, you're basically lost. That is the understanding. In Africa, excellence isn't an elite financial bracket. In fact, we can spot a fool by how much value they place on money over lives. To us, pride lives with our mother. Excellence looks like women getting educated and employed, women obtaining government positions and taking up space, women not being abused, ignored, or silenced, women being able to speak up and being taken seriously, women headed household being respected. It looks like women practicing economically at the same rate and respect as men, women being accepted as capable and worthy. This is not superficial victory. It is the baseline for societal survival. These are the dangers of erasing the feminine. To understand why women hold up the community is the ultimate definition of excellence, we have to look at what happens when the feminine presence is violently erased. A society cannot function or thrive when it is run strictly by and for men. It requires a feminine touch and spin. Imagine that one uncle who lives alone. What does he look like? What does his house look like? Number one, Afghanistan. In recent years, Afghanistan has made worse the systematic oppression imposed on women by locking them away. They cannot leave their houses without a male escort or companion. They have no access to education. They cannot work, let alone travel. Because human society naturally reacts to the vacuum of femininity, the erasure of women created a twisted, predatory substitute known as the Bachabazi, the dancing boys of Afghanistan. Young boys are said to be taken, often sold out of poverty, exploited, and forced into prostitution by older men simply to mimic the warmth, dance, and feminine feel that the public space is missing. Second up, Somalia. A similar parallel crisis can be seen in Somalia, driven by systematic patriarchal networks and a failure to protect women legally. Education has become an elite bottleneck, with nearly half of Somalian women receiving zero education. The tiny 2.3% who make it to university are not outsiders, as Somalia is mainly a homogeneous nation. These women happen to be daughters of affluent urban families who can afford privatized tuition. Yep, yep, I did look it up. I did look it up. The women, the Somalian women who are getting educated, are not white women, are not white Somalian women. They are Somalian women who who come from affluent families, because everything about education is privatized and incredibly expensive. So resources typically go to the boys, while the girls, well, well, when resources are scarce, the patriarchal customs ensure that the money goes to the sons. If you are poor, rural, or nomad, your daughters are completely locked out, which appears to be a global trend in every homogeneous country, especially if the country is weathering harsh economic conditions. Socially, the women bear the brunt. And even in the past, like in homogeneous countries where there's now laws that encourage equality, gender equality, and give women spaces and allow them to actually take up space and have a say. If you look at those countries in the past, this was prevalent. In the past, this is something that happened exponentially. It just so happens that in Somalia, it's still recent, unfortunately. When a society suppresses women, the social fabric collapses into instability, violence, and extreme poverty. It proves that without the safety and intellect of women, society cannot survive. In sweet conclusion, I would like to say, I have hope. I have hope that as Africans, as Black people, we're gonna weather this and we're gonna be okay. And so I would love to leave you with this. If you have to stand up and fight, do that. If you have to stand up and speak up for somebody, do that. Do that, please. But remember, you're not just representing yourself, you are representing an entire continent of people. You're representing an entire race of people, and therefore, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you speak, the way that you stride when you walk with that. Know that in your DNA, we may not share the same DNA, but the same makeup. What makes you makes me, and therefore you represent me, even if you represent me in small corners of the world that I will never reach, corners that I will probably even never hear of. You make sure that you carry me with pride, and I will do that to you, because that is what being Black, that is what being an African communal person means. I love you. Take care. Keep fighting.